Hello everybody and welcome to another tactical preview video from Stats Perform. I'm joined today by Ben Mackriell and Jonathan Whitmore, and we're going to look ahead to Liverpool against Manchester City, the big game on Sunday. A team feared across Europe with a great defence but who are struggling to retain their title after an injury crisis. That was Manchester City last year, but they've bounced back, and we'll also have time to look at Liverpool as well. In fact, we'll start with Liverpool because they're at home. So Ben, over to you.
So Liverpool are going into this game after another frustrating performance and result against Brighton with a 1-0 loss. And, you know, that's been an interesting story of their season, particularly since the last game against City back in November. And I think one of the problems that they found last night against Brighton, and one of the problems they've had in some of those other disappointing results against sort of lower half of the table opposition, has been how narrow they've been and how narrow they've been in attack. So we can see from this heat map, this is a heat map of their matches against top six opposition. And you can see how kind of narrow their attacks are, how much domination of their touches are in that kind of middle and kind of inside right and inside left zones of the pitch. So that's been a big issue for them, particularly when Trent wasn't in the team. They don't have that width, natural width in the team going forward, particularly from that front three. So if we look back to that game in November against City at the Etihad, we can see that from the tracking data, Liverpool did have quite a bit of width. And if we look at when they're attacking, kind of in our sustained threat phase, when they're really dominating possession in the final third, you can see a good amount of width. Obviously, Robertson and Trent getting forward high up the pitch, Mane and Salah giving that width either side of Firmino. So, you know, back in November, they did have that width in the team. But if we go to the game against West Ham at the weekend, you can see how narrow and blocked they are in the same phase of the game. Origi did give them a bit of width. There were certainly parts of the game where they created chances where he drifted into the left channel, was able to cut crosses back across the box. But you can see how kind of clogged up they are in that middle area. And that causes a lot of issues for them, because if, like Brighton did, like West Ham did at the weekend, if they do compact the middle of the pitch, it doesn't give them many options to get balls in the box or to give them any other attacking options. And kind of final proof of that is if we look again at their patterns. So this is the patterns of play that they have as a team, the way they move the ball around the attacking half. We can again see how kind of dominated it is in these central areas. There's a few going into wide areas, but they're generally trying to penetrate the box in these inside channels, kind of in the middle of the pitch. So if City want to have success against this Liverpool attack and continue to stifle them, as Brighton showed they could do on Wednesday night, they're going to need to stay compact. They're going to need to stay narrow in that middle area. And that's probably going to frustrate Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple of points on that. Pep Guardiola has been praising Graham Potter as the best English coach, and we saw evidence of that in midweek. And also, if you remember that the game at the Etihad earlier in the season, Liverpool actually kind of played four up front almost with Jota as well. And, you know, it really surprised City for the first kind of 10, 15 minutes. And it was one of the most extraordinary openings to a Premier League game I've ever seen. But, you know, City managed to weather that storm reasonably well. But it just sort of shows how Liverpool's options have really dwindled with their injuries. And that essentially is why they're, you know, probably not going to be able to retain the title this season. In looking at City, Johnny, you've got some thoughts on them.
So we all know City are particularly good offensively, but what's been interesting this season has been the shift in attitude towards their defence. So you can see from the graphic that we're going to show here, their underlying performance. So most significantly in the last 6 games, Man City have all kept clean sheets in every single game. And what you can see here is the red line shows the underlying attacking performance, and the orange line shows the underlying defensive performance. So if we take a look, first of all, last season, 2019-2020, you can see this orange-yellow line here, and Man City were conceding nearly a goal a game. And most significantly this season now, since Stones and Diaz have really nailed down that partnership, is they're actually, the XG against, you can see on the bottom right-hand side there, is gradually decreasing over the season. So this has been really significant, and you can see that gap between the XG for and XG against really growing apart. So that's them improving offensively in the red line and defensively in the yellow-orange line. So an interesting part about this, like I said, is the new partnership of Diaz and Stones. But I think the interesting thing now, having watched the game against Burnley, is how they're going to fit in Laporte. So this kind of ties in as well to Cancelo. So now that Laporte's returned from injury, and we know Pep really likes having that left-footed centre-back to open up the different passing channels, it allows Cancelo to play this roaming right-back role. So he's played it a few times this season where defensively he is a traditional right-back, but offensively when Man City are in possession of the ball, he comes into the central areas and almost plays central midfield. Most significantly last night, I guess, was that Laporte, Stones and Diaz all started. So Laporte kind of played in this left centre-back role with an almost 3 at the back in possession. So this will be really interesting to see how that matches up against Liverpool, and B, how potentially Cancelo, if he starts at the weekend, will allow him to more creativity and advancement going forwards. As you can see all these clusters in really offensive areas. On the flip side, though, I guess, so what Ben's saying there about Liverpool's attacking options being quite narrow. What was noticeable last night was the very few times that Burnley did get in behind City was in between Diaz and Laporte in that left centre-back role, where the ball over the top caught them out for a couple of half chances. So yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how that matches up, especially with Mo Salah or potentially Mane if he's fully fit to play, how they can exploit those areas behind the City defence. So it'd be a telling season. They've figured out, they've been improving both offensively and defensively just in time for a tough run of fixtures. So they've got Liverpool this weekend, followed by Spurs and Arsenal, with potential for an Everton game squeezed in there as well. So could be a make or break point in the season for Manchester City in the title run.
Cool. Thanks, Johnny. I mean, yeah, the Burnley game, I think, was almost like an experiment for Pep ahead of the weekend with, as you say, Laporte. He's not that happy about the new established Diaz-Stones partnership, but he was kind of playing, as you said, like an auxiliary left-back, really. And if you think, Salah's Liverpool's kind of only in-form forward player at the moment, having him there as well should kind of shore up that channel. I mean, I guess one of the few things in Liverpool's favour is they do have an incredibly good home record against City, and this, unlike some fixtures, this game does tend to be won by the home team usually. But obviously, we're now in a paradigm where away teams are winning more than any other time in top flight history. So, as always, it's probably the biggest, most tactically interesting game of the Premier League season. It could be a bit different this time, given how depleted Liverpool are and how much confidence they're lacking. But it's still going to be, arguably the game of the season. So definitely worth tuning in and seeing whether any of the stuff we said has come true. And I'm sure most of it has. Anyway, thanks for joining, and we'll be back very soon with another preview.